Hi everybody, so what we're going to do in this video is go over how to use the law of sines to figure out a missing measurement of either an angle or a side in a non-right triangle. Keyword, it's got to be non-right. So there should be no 90-degree angles in this triangle, and this is why we're going to use the law of sines. So first I want to just go over some basics. The way that I remember to use law of sines is what I would call the ambiguous case, or the two-pair rule, two pairs. So first thing that you got to kind of know is just to make sure you know that any kind of capital letter stands for angles, and any kind of lowercase letter stands for side measurements, right? So just know that. And then what you also want to know is that a pair means that the angle that you're looking at, so in this case, angle 110 will match up with the side that is across from it. So 110 degrees and 12 will be considered a pair, right? Because they're across from each other, they're opposite, they're not touching on this plane. The next one that we might have here that we use is an incomplete pair. So the incomplete pair that I see a 50-degree measurement, and then I see, side B opposite of that measurement. So when I make this little shape where it's got a little crisscross, this is how I always remember two pairs, right? So remember, to use the law of sines, you got to have, first of all, it has to be non-right, and it has to have those two pair elements. So go ahead and go into some examples. So I'm going to first actually start with, let me go to this example. So on this example, and one thing that's really good about this is that you actually will not have to memorize the law of sines. It'll be given to you on a formula sheet, but even if you did have to memorize it, it's not super hard. So you can see law of sines is up here, right? And again, just remember, you want to make sure it's a non-right triangle. And you want to make sure that it has those two pairs, that ambiguous case, right? So we'll take a look. So for example, one that you see here, it's very skill-based. It's solve for a missing blank of a non-right triangle. And if we look into our diagram, we see there is an X in place of what an angle would be. So we're going to be solving for an angle here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to verify that I use law of sines, because I don't want to do all this work and waste my time and then be stuck. So I'm going to look and I see, okay, I'm going to call this, let's call that A, I'm going to call this B, and I'm going to call this C, right? And so I see there are no right angles, so that's good, it works. And then I see, are there two pairs? So first pair I see is this C pair, right? 125 degrees matches up with 100 centimeters, so that's my first pair. And then I see what I'm looking for is the second pair. So I see in this position by the A, right, this X, is it's going to be matched with that 60 centimeters. That's the side that's across from that angle. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and really step one is I'm going to set up my formula, my law of sines formula to figure it out. And so I'm going to go ahead and I can use this formula in any way that I kind of want. So it doesn't matter if I have sine A over A or sine C over C or sine B over B. It doesn't matter. So I'll show you what I choose to do. I always put the complete pair first. So I'm going to do sine of 125 over 100. Again, because they're buddies, they're pairs, they match up. So we're going to put them in the same fraction together. And then equals, and I'm going to go ahead and set up my second incomplete pair. So I'm going to have sine of, well, I can't put any number there. It's just X. I'm going to put X, and that's going to be over 60. And now at this point, I really just want to use everything I know about algebra to make sure that I can figure it out and work it out and get to that X, right? You all can obviously see I'm looking for an angle here. Right, so I'm going to have to go through and use that word. Looking for an angle, right? So my answer is going to be in degree. So some of you may know If you have two fractions that equal to each other, you can actually use a little cross multiplication technique if you would like, or you can use just inverse operations. So I do like to cross multiply and then solve. So I'm gonna go ahead and cross multiply 60 times sine 125 equals 100 times sine of x. Another thing that you want to kind of be careful with is, wait until the end to use your calculator. Just because there's a lot of decimals in these and you don't want to get confused by all those rounding errors and whatever else you have. So just wait until the very end to use your calcs. And I'll show you how to do it. And it'll be super simple. It's like a quick step. So, okay, so now, trying to solve for that x, that's my goal. So 100 times sine x, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide by 100 because that's our inverse. Inverse of multiplying is dividing. We don't have this anymore. So now we are left with 60 times sine of 125, which if you know that in your head, you are incredibly intelligent. You probably worked very hard for it, so good job. I do not, so we're going to keep going. All right, so now we have sine of x. We have 60 times sine of 125 divided by 100 equals sine of x. How are we going to undo this sine over here? Well, I'll pause so you think about it. The way that you undo a sine is using an inverse of sine. So many of you know this maybe as arc sine or sine to the negative 1 power, like whatever else you call it. Some people use different words, that's fine. But so what we do is using our calculator, we're going to go ahead and we're going to press a button that I'll show you in a second, and we're going to do sine of negative 1. And so the inverse of that. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead over to my calculator, and here it is. First thing I want to do, make sure you're in degree mode. So if you're using a calculator, you just go to mode, and you will see that you can scroll down. If you have reset your calculator and already turned it off and on, you will have it automatically in radian mode. So just make sure you put it in degree. Degree, whenever you're calculating, you want to put it in degree. Okay, so it is in degree mode, so that's great. Let me go ahead back to my problem here. So what was my problem again? Okay, so I'm going to type in, all right, arc of sine. So the way I get that is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit second and then the sine button on the calculator, right? So those two buttons, and I'll show you in a second. I just want them on here so you can see it. All right, so second sine, you see that little negative 1 pop up, so that's how we know we're in the inverse. I do really love to use a lot of parentheses, so I'm going to use my parenthesis first for my numerator, and my numerator was 60 sine 125, 60 times sine, regular sine 125. I'm going to close my parentheses set, and then I believe it said I was dividing by 100, right? If you all were here, I would hope you'd be saying yes to me, but it's okay. All right, hit enter. Boom. 29.4386428. Do you think you have to put all the decimals? Absolutely not. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to say, let's use a healthy 2 decimal places. So 29.438 would round up to 29.44. And I am going to have my angle 29.44 degrees. Right, so that is the first one there. It seems like a lot the first time you do it, but as we go to the next one, you'll see it's a little bit simpler. So if we got to summarize here real quick, first thing, set up your formula, make sure you're supposed to use law of sines. And the second thing is just cross multiply, divide, make sure you're solving, and then you'll get to the end. Make sure your calculator's in degree mode. Just loading. Okay, let's take a look at one that's maybe a little bit more interesting. So let's take a look. So we have Anthony. Anthony wants to measure the height of a tree. He walks exactly 100 feet from the base of the tree and looks up. The angle from the ground to the top of the tree is 32 degrees. This particular tree grows at an angle of 83 degrees with respect to the ground rather than vertically. How tall is the tree? Okay. There's a lot in here. So let's break it down. Right? So we have Anthony. He's walking 100 feet from the base of a tree, and he's looking up. So I know I'm going to have an angle that's looking up, which is, kind of some context clues here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just draw that little tree. Boom. Here's Anthony. Doop, doop. Here he is. That hat, some hair, some. Okay, so he is 100 feet away, and he is looking up to the tree at an angle of 33. So I'm going to go ahead and label this one as 33. And it also gives us some information about the angle at which the tree is growing. So when I'm looking at this diagram, here's the tree. If I see what it's growing at, it's going to be 83 right here. Right. So it says with respect to the ground, rather than how tall is the tree? So we are looking for this piece right here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and label my triangle. So I'm going to say this is A, B, C. When I take a look, I know that my first pair that I could have, well, I'm looking, I don't really see any pairs, but I could fill in some information, right? So this third angle, right, 33 and 83, and another angle, if we think about a fact that we probably know, what do all angles inside of a triangle add up to? 180. So I'm going to take 180, minus 33, minus 83, right? And if I do that real quick in my head, which, it's actually a little bit sad that I can't do it as quickly as probably you all. It's going to be 64. I can't really do it in my head. I use my calculator. It's okay. So this is 64 degrees. So I can see, okay, bingo. Look at this. I'm going to use law of sines because I see that this angle is going to match up with that 100. Right? So that's going to be my first part of my law of sines equation. Sine of 64 over 100. Then I'm going to go ahead and take a look. Well, I have to look for this unknown, right? This X, this side of this tree that I have in blue. And that is going to match up with this angle. So I've got sine of 33 over X. And then I can just push forward and keep working, right, to solve. So I've set it up. Let's see if I can do my page extender. It's okay, I just keep writing. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cross multiply. Right, like I showed you in the other one. This one will be a little easier because I don't have to do any inverse work, which is good. So X times sine of 64. I'm just going to write those next to each other. And then 100 times sine of 33. Right. And, what's that parenthesis? And so then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide by sine of 64, because I want to get that X by itself, that variable. You got to isolate it, just like all your other math classes, all that algebra, you got to isolate it. So, my answer, and again, remember, I like to wait to the end to go into my calculator. X is going to equal 100 times sine of 33 over, no, I'll put it in parentheses, sine of 64. Your parentheses are really helpful when you're working with groups. So let's go ahead over to our calculator. Ooh, I still got all my work from earlier, so let me go ahead and clear that out. And what did we have? We had 100 sine 33. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in parentheses. 100 sine 33. That's going to be divided by sine of 64. Again, I love those parentheses. So. All right, I'm going to hit enter. And I get 60.5966. So if we go ahead and round that, that'll actually bump us up to 60.6. And remember, what are we working with here in terms of measurement? We're looking at a side of how tall the tree is. And so we were working in feet. So I'm going to be 60.6 feet. And that is how you would use the law of sines.